we are officially back at it again, and this time with the Motorola Edge, the normal, clean Motorola Edge, and of course still comparing it with the Samsung Galaxy S21. And just to quickly run over the specs of this normal Motorola X, we still have a 6.7 inch screen, we have a little downgrade in the processor, we have a Snapdragon 765 5G still though. We have in this version only 128 GB of storage with 4 GB of RAM, though it also has a version with 6 gigs of RAM, but it could mean that this phone runs slower or perhaps doesn't remember all the things you do in apps. Then we of course have a little downgrade in the camera. We went from 108 megapixel on this Edge Plus to the 64 megapixel on the main rear-facing camera here on the Motorola Edge. And we of course also have an 8 megapixel and a 16 megapixel ultra-wide and telephoto. Last but not least, we have a 4500 milliamp hour battery, which means that we're going down 500 milliamp hours from this phone to this normal Edge. We still have the fast charging 18 watts, but we do not have this reverse wireless charging, which means that you can charge other devices with your phone. We do not have that in this Motorola Edge. But other than that, this phone is basically identical with this Motorola Edge Plus. The design is actually not quite the same. The camera bump is gone, which means that this phone doesn't wriggle when it is placed down on a table, and of course the phone itself is not quite as powerful as the Plus model. But anyway, we're comparing it with this S21. The normal Motorola Edge goes for $499, which is an okay price. It's half the price of this Plus model, remember that. So we already there have some good things to consider when buying a Motorola. The design is, like I said, basically the same. We've moved the SIM card tray from the bottom to the top, and then we've taken the headphone jack and moved it down to the bottom instead of the top where it is on the Plus. I've been using this phone too for a few days, and it's, like I said, the experience is identical with the Edge Plus. Nothing has changed in the software or the way I use the phone. The only thing that I really notice is the camera quality. I do not think it's as good here on the normal Edge as it is on the Edge Plus. I think it's a bit more, it's just not as high quality, though I haven't had this phone overheating as much as the Plus. But if we take the camera side by side with the S21, we really see a big difference in terms of quality and in terms of where Samsung and Motorola has put their specs. Though I still like the smaller form factor that we have in the S21, these phones are more or less the same. This phone is just matte. I think it's just this model, but it of course means fewer fingerprints, because this phone is, like the Plus model, a big fingerprint magnet. So if we just take a quick look here at the Geekbenches, you can see that the S21 is overall performing much better than the Motorola Edge. We have a multi-core score that is over 3000, and we have a single core score that is also over 1000, which is over half the time better than the Motorola Edge. So overall, the S21 will actually perform better, primarily because of the hardware, but also definitely because of the software and One UI. I really didn't notice that the battery is 500 milliamp hours lower than the Plus model, so I think the battery still is pretty good here. And the battery here on the Edge is actually 500 milliamp hours bigger than the battery here on the S21, because the S21 only has 4000 milliamp hours, and it of course also charges a bit faster than the Edge. The S21 does 25 watt fast charging, which is pretty good, and it also has reverse wireless charging. So overall, looking at the hardware and software, I would say this S21 is actually better than the normal Motorola Edge. But not as good as the Edge Plus. I think the Samsung One UI is actually better than Motorola's take. Though Motorola has a more clean Android, of course, they do not put a lot of skins or anything like that on their phones. But again, the main difference between the S21 and the Motorola Edge is the screen, because the Motorola Edge still has a screen that goes quite down the side of the phone. It's really curved, which the S21 isn't. It's completely flat. The fact that the hole punch camera is in the middle instead of to the left, which we see here on the Edge. But if I were to go out and buy one of these two phones right now, I would still take the S21. Both because of the fact that it's smaller, it's more compact, the software is better, I would say, and then also the fact that it doesn't overheat as much as both the Edge and the Edge Plus.